Each year, the graduating class of the College of Law selects a Professor of the Year. And this year, keeping up with technology, we accepted online nominations from the students, and after 2 rounds of voting, we came out with a clear winner. It should be noted that the student body on the stage here today nominated 25 professors for this award. That's a number that I believe speaks directly to the quality of the educators at the College of Law and the impact that they've had on the class of 2017. Like this year's Professor of the Year, former Professors of the Year here on stage were dedicated to student success at the law school, in life, and also in their future practice. This year's Professor of the Year takes his job very seriously. And by seriously, I mean he would send a 937-word email after teaching an hour and 20-minute long class on constitutional law. The time he spends with the students during class, the hours-long conversation in the hallway after class, and the time that he spends in his office with students clearly shows his dedication. Now, while we often joke about the emails or how loudly he talks, what we cannot joke about is how every word of every email and every question answered goes to help us learn and to help us grow as students. Each question thrown at this guy in class was answered thoroughly, and you can ask any student on this stage and they'll tell you that this professor gave 100% to his students every single day. He is, in fact, the only professor that I know who crafted an entire exam question based solely on a single footnote from a case. Most lawyers in the audience will probably know what footnote we're talking about. It is also alleged that he once had hair and that it was brownish. When his beloved dog, Roxanne, who was generally acknowledged as the best dog ever, when she passed away, the students were pretty sad along with the professor, so much so that a student purchased a card and the entire class signed the sympathy card. Now, on a lighter note, Scout, his cat, is alive and well, but we all know that even the finest cat is not a dog. This year's Professor of the Year dedicates as much time as is necessary to ensure that his students succeed not only in the classroom but also in their future roles as attorneys. He grew up in Gastonia, North Carolina. He's a lover of the outdoors, and when he moved to West Virginia, he only planned to stay for 1 year, and then he was going to move back home. I speak for the students on the stage when I say that we're glad you stayed. It's an honor and it is a privilege to introduce to you the man whose laugh makes me laugh. He is the Professor of the Year, and it's John Taylor.
Thank you very much, Brad, for that kind introduction. In my own defense, it wasn't just any footnote. It was the footnote, Caroline Products footnote 4. Okay. Good morning, everyone. It is a great honor to speak with you today as the Professor of the Year for this remarkable class, the College of Law class of 2017. I've been teaching here for 15 years. I've never received this honor before, and really I never expected to receive it because I have many, many colleagues who are far better teachers than I am. Although I don't feel worthy of the recognition, it means the world to me, and so thank you guys so much. I try to remind myself every day of how lucky I am to get to do something I love, surrounded by students who have brought me so much joy, and by colleagues who have been role models for me and have supported me since the day I arrived. In gratitude for these gifts, I do work pretty hard at my teaching, and to be recognized for that is something that I will never forget. I thank the class of 2017 for their generosity in selecting me to speak today, and I must also commend them for their courage in selecting me to speak today. Why courage, you may ask? It takes courage to throw yourself on a hand grenade or to fly United. I'll be here all week, ladies and gentlemen. How much courage does it take to select a graduation speaker? But you see, they know me. And for reasons Brad's introduction has already suggested, they know that to provide me with a microphone and a captive audience on this, one of the most important days of their lives, requires courage. I could explain the reasons for their fear the way I explain everything else, at length. but one anecdote will suffice. After my final con law class, when these folks were 1Ls, they presented me with my still cherished copy of Constitutional Law Bingo, in which the bingo card spaces were marked with common class events. For example, Taylor says, upshot. Taylor laughs crazily. Ariana laughs even more crazily than Taylor. And of course, in keeping with footnote 4, the answer was political process theory, though no one guessed that. Some possibilities were tactfully omitted. For example, there was no square reading, Taylor lamely attempts to demonstrate his hipness by making a pop culture reference to something that happened before we were born. My favorite square, though, and probably the easiest for players to fill in, read, says he's going to briefly explain something, then doesn't. These graduates, then, have taken a risk in giving me the microphone today. Rest assured, however, that I will attempt to reward them rather than to punish them for their trust. Admittedly, this has not been easy, and I will say the first draft of this speech was maybe a wee bit too long, where we in Taylor speak means maybe 15 minutes too long. But I've cut it down, and we're going to be okay. I ask only this. If the speech is less amusing than you would have hoped, just imagine the stuff I cut was much funnier than what stayed in. Okay. I want to begin by talking to the families and friends in the audience about what this class has meant to me. Every student is important and every class is important. We try to do our best by each one. But for me, this has been a special group, and I'm never going to forget them. I hope that in some small way I've helped them to figure out who they want to be and to believe in their own abilities. But really, this group has done more for me on those fronts than I have for them. And to understand what I mean, you have to understand a little bit about what the life of a law professor or any academic really feels like from the inside. I recognize that this last sentence may be the least enticing segue in the history of graduation addresses, because truly, who cares what it feels like to be me? But bear with me. Professors are in the knowledge business, but most of us spend a lot more time worrying about what we don't know than savoring what we do know. And long study does little to ease this worry, because the more you learn, the more acutely you become aware of all the things you still don't know. This has its perverse attractions in much the way that golf is an addictive game, because it offers small, seemingly random moments of success amidst a sea of crushing failure. But it is also humbling and sometimes a little unnerving. I've taken on two new and especially challenging courses in the years since this group arrived, namely Constitutional Law 1 and Criminal Procedure 1. In these classes, it still feels to me as though I don't even know enough yet to have a clear view of the vast scope of my own ignorance. And in addition, I am following in the footsteps of colleagues like Jerry Ashdown, Bob Bastress, and Jim McLaughlin, who know these fields far better than I ever will. These are the classes in which I came to know most of these graduates, and I might reasonably have worried that they would ask why their predecessors got to dine at a fancy steakhouse while they had to eat at McDonald's. The great gift that they gave me was to free me from that worry. Our students do not come to us with a sense of entitlement, and they are not here to moan and whine. As long as they believe you were committed to their learning and you were pulling for them, they will pull for you as well. It is something you can feel in the classroom, and it's something this group has given me at a time in my teaching career when I've been learning new things and I really needed their support and their trust. I've answered a lot of questions with I don't know in the last couple of years, and instead of complaining, these folks will say things like, I really appreciate that he took the time to track things down after class and answer our questions. It may sound like a small thing, but to someone who does what I do, it makes all the difference in the world. So thank you guys for your trust. All right, now on to the hardest part of this assignment. What can I say to you, the class of 2017, about what happens next? I can, of course, say, study hard for the bar, but I don't want you to think about that today, or even tomorrow. Monday, I want you to think about it, right? But what about the longer term? What words of inspiration can I offer to you? I have to admit that my life story is not a great source of inspiration. Basically, I'm just the guy who liked school so much that he found a way to never leave. And I make no apologies for that. I like to learn things. I like to share what I've learned with other people. It works for me, but it's not exactly A-list material for a screenplay. And when I ask what life has taught me that I wish I had known when I was where you are now, I think mainly of pretty basic things that I learned from my parents, my wife, my teachers, and of course, my dogs. Indeed, I think mainly of things that at some level I did know when I was your age. Time has just given me a deeper appreciation of their importance. Here then are 4 pieces of advice that, at least in my experience, stand the test of time. I make no claim to originality. Point 1, every day you go to work, you have to make the choice to be a lawyer. I've been married for almost 28 years, thanks to my wife Grace's patience with all my faults and her tolerance for ad-libbed song parodies, something that she regards as a fault, but that I, of course, regard as a virtue. And I've heard it said that the key to marriage is to understand that it's not a choice that you make once. Instead, you have to make an active choice to share your life with this person every single day. I think that is exactly right, and I also think the point is true pretty much across the board. Most of you want to practice law, some of you may want to run businesses or go into politics or do a host of other things, but whatever you are doing, you have to recommit yourself to that task every single day. Your clients are going to need your absolute commitment to what you are doing every single day. You made a choice to come to law school, you make a choice to take the bar, you make a choice to pass the bar by making a choice to study for the bar, starting on Monday. But the choosing never stops. You have to choose to be a lawyer or whatever it is you do every day. And if you no longer want to choose to be a lawyer every day, do something else. Life is too short to waste your time on something you're not committed to doing. And that leads to my second bit of advice. Work toward finding or building a practice that you love. It may take you a while to find it, but keep looking. If you do find it, it will make you happier, and that seems obvious, but it will also make you a better lawyer, and here's why. We talk a lot about talent in this world, and talent certainly matters, but in most things in life, and certainly in law, what really matters is hard work, right? Excellence in serving your clients is primarily a matter of working really hard, and your love for what you are doing is the only thing that's going to enable you to completely embrace the hard work that you need to do. A sense of duty and a strong will can make you a good lawyer, but only love for what you are doing and belief in what you are doing will make you the best lawyer you are capable of being. If there's any respect in which my career is a successful one, it flows almost completely from loving what it is that I do. Point 3 is a timeless bit of advice that helped to make The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy an intergalactic bestseller. I don't have in mind the advice to always know where your towel is, though that too is important. People are looking at me. This would be an example of Taylor making a pop culture reference to something. And one thing I apparently haven't learned in life is that jokes that require footnotes probably should be rewritten, but I can't seem to learn that lesson. In any event, what I have in mind are the words written in large type on the guide's cover, and those words are, "Don't panic." Life does not always go the way you plan, but that is okay. When I was the age most of you are now, I thought that when I was my age, I would be teaching philosophy and religion to undergraduates at a liberal arts college in New England. I never thought that I was going to be a lawyer or a law professor or a West Virginian. But I got the chance to come here 15 years ago, and this place became my home. My teachers had a great influence in my life, and my dream was to have a chance to be to other people what my teachers were to me. That didn't work out the way I had initially planned, but it did ultimately work out, and today I'm very glad to be here with all of you and not in New England. I cannot say I completely avoided panic when my plan A went awry. My wife is in the audience, and she knows better. But I didn't totally lose it. I was patient, and ultimately I got the break that I needed and the chance to live my dream. So if things aren't going the way you want them to go, don't panic. Point 4, play the long game. This is a phrase that I think I stole from Jessica Haught, so Jessica, shout out to you. But it's not. But the ideas are not ones that I or even Jessica invented. Sometimes life presents us with dramatic choices. So, for example, you're on the Supreme Court and you get a chance to rule on the legality of the Japanese internment in World War II. As you recall, that didn't go so well. But for most of us, most of the time, the difference between good lives and less good ones turns on innumerable small choices. None seems especially significant in itself, but over time they add up and they define who we are. By play the long game, I mean that you have to live on the assumption that in the long run, things will work out best for you and the people around you and really for everyone in the world if you try to do the little things correctly. And by the little things, I mean all the kinds of things that your parents have been telling you as long as you were old enough to understand them. The list would include be straight with people. It takes a long time to earn other people's trust and respect and a very short time to lose it. It is the most cliched piece of advice in the world, and you've already heard it 1,000 times, but it is also the most important piece of advice in the world, in my view, so I repeat it here. I mean, I've probably listened to Bohemian Rhapsody 1,000 times, but it's still awesome. Take pride in your work. Every detail of every single thing you do reflects on who you are as a person, as a lawyer. So when you're practicing law, sweat the small stuff. The small stuff matters. Know what you were talking about, or if you don't, keep your mouth shut and listen. Self-explanatory, though as you might imagine, this is the rule that I have the hardest time living up to. If you screw up, and you will, because everybody does, admit it and try to fix it. And when you're trying to figure out what went wrong, start out by acknowledging what you could have done differently rather than by blaming other people. Try for as long as you can to assume that other people are acting in good faith and are doing what they sincerely believe to be right, even if their actions initially seem evil to you and their justifications seem absurd. It's a lot easier to find common ground with people if you understand where they're coming from and you give them the benefit of the doubt. And last, remember that whatever it is you accomplished, you didn't do it by yourself. You needed other people. Thank the people who make your work possible and mean it. No one in any workplace has ever felt overappreciated. I could go on, but at some level, you already know these things and others like them, just as I did when I was waiting to receive my law school diploma. You also know that these principles are little only in the sense that our adherence to them is measured by countless small choices rather than by a few big ones. What you will come to know more deeply in the coming years is that life will test your commitment to these principles on a daily basis. You may feel at times that no one really cares whether you're doing the little things correctly, but to play the long game is to believe that in the end it really does matter. As my favorite lyricist, the great Neil Peart, put it, the measure of a life is a measure of love and respect. Simple line, but a great one, I think. The daily choices you make about small matters will largely determine the measure of your lives in the eyes of your clients, your colleagues, and your loved ones. The upshot, then, play the long game. There you have it, 4 basic principles that I try to follow. Admittedly, the last one has subparts, but you were expecting that. I probably fall short on each of these at least as often as I succeed, but I think my life is better for at least trying to live up to them, and I commend them to you. And now it's time to wrap up. I know what some of you are thinking. You're wondering if I've planned a graduation version of the pre-exam ritual. And some of you haven't had me, and you'll have to ask what that means. But in any event, believe me, I did think about it a lot, but ultimately I decided against it because the torts professor in me thought, asking people in graduation gowns, and in some cases graduation gowns and heels, to stand up on their chairs and do the matrix is probably a bad idea. So I've decided to leave that aside, and I think Tina is thankful for that. So I will instead conclude in a more conventional fashion. You guys have been a wonderful class. You have enriched my life and the lives of all the faculty and staff by being part of our law school community for the past 3 years. Soon you're going to be out in the world representing clients or running businesses or a variety of things. We are going to miss you. Don't be strangers. There are going to be moments of fear and uncertainty as you adapt to your new roles. And in those moments, I hope that you will think to yourself, this is what I wanted, this is what I prepared for, and I can do it. And I hope in those moments you will also remember all of the people who believe in you and are here with you today, your families and your friends, your classmates, and even those of us who will remain up here on the Hill. You guys are going to do great, and I look forward to seeing and hearing all of the things that you accomplish. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak with you for one last time before you begin the next chapter of your